Hi, Marios. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good, very well. I'm bit busy with a daughter, newborn baby, Jenny, but it's getting better.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. Also, thank you very much for accepting the interview, first of all. For our guest today, I'm just going to shortly introduce you. Marios, actually, I met him through, of course, LinkedIn. I never met him in person, but we somehow collaborating together for his platform called Studio 3DX, which is like a common data environment for BIM workflow. You can upload IFC model and collaborate with your partners or collaborators. It's really intuitive web cloud service to work together with different partners. So welcome, Marius, for today's interview. And I would like to
Thank you.
ask
That's my
you,
pleasure.
yeah, thank you. I would just ask you a couple of questions today I prepared. So
Mhm.
I hope it's not too difficult to answer.
No, 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 absolutely. I'm really happy to be here. And any question you have,
Okay,
yeah.
great. First of all, we would like to get to know you. So my first question is, what have you studied?
Mhm. So I studied architecture, traditional architecture. I was at the University of Brighton in the UK
Wow.
for my bachelor's, and then I went into Politecnico di Milano in Italy, and I did my master's. It was again architecture, but with a combination of urban design.
Okay, that's interesting. So you're architect. Um, I guess difficult to transit different educational system maybe. Have you always wanted to do that, to be an architect, or?
Well, yes, I mean, generally, yes. I think it's something that my parents helped me guide into
Mm-hmm.
architecture. It was mostly because, my father is a shop owner, same as my mother, and they used to do everything by hand, everything themselves. They
Mm-hmm.
used to do the welding, setting up the shop, the crafts inside. And I think that's
Wow.
where it all began, to understand that a space starts with designing and planning.
Mm-hmm. Wow, interesting. Where you guys are located right now? Where are you?
Yeah, we are located in Cyprus. We
Cyprus.
are in a small village in between Limassol and Larnaca.
Ah,
So we have the luxury of the green spaces here.
okay, all right, I see. I guess between Cyprus and UK, educational system is more or less same, isn't it? From the history, probably.
Um, well, yes, generally speaking, there's a lot to learn from, the UK's educational system here, and also a lot of, people from Cyprus go and study in the UK. So
Sure.
it's really common for a Cypriot person to study, abroad, especially in the UK.
Mm-hmm. I see. Wow. What was the hardest part of your study, architectural study?
Well, I really must say exams.
Yeah.
So, on one hand, I started, in the UK, you had this more of an abstract way of understanding architecture and the space and, the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, when I went to Italy, it was the exact opposite. It was a serious process, and you had this analysis and these hands-on calculations, even by
Mm-hmm.
hand, some static engineering and so on.
Really?
And yeah, and the exam part of it was really hard for me. So
Mm.
it took me a lot of time
Mm.
to really work around it, but it gave me a lot of opportunities at the end to combine these two mindsets
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and apply them in my daily life.
Yeah. I think its difference is that as far as I know, in UK, you have to do part one, part two, part three education,
Mhm.
and then you eventually register as an architect. And
Yeah.
in Italy, I think after you graduate from master program, you like obtaining architect license automatically. As far as I know, is that true or it's changed?
Well, at the time that I was studying
Mm.
still, it's not exactly to show after your master's, you still have to do these national exams
Okay.
in order to become a registered architect in Italy. I
Okay.
didn't go through
Mm,
with that. So
mm,
I'm not a registered architect
mm,
in Italy.
mm.
And well, at the end, it didn't make a difference for me because I moved on to the software side.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sure. For me, I also understand the difference. I studied in Korea first, and
Hmm.
then Australia for my bachelor studies. And after that, I went to Austria, Vienna for my master program.
Nice.
And I had these three different educational background to accredit all the subjects. I have to
Hmm.
make like one box of portfolio and send it to Korean, registration board, like architect registration board in Korea, and they like proceed all the folio and what is
Yeah.
missing. They check everything, and after that, they told me, okay, your education is accredited. So
Hmm.
next step was like 3 years of practice I did and made this
Brilliant.
diary and the supervising architect stamped every topics, and then now I can take the exam as a licensed architect. But it's a long time process, and I
Yeah.
think yeah, it's really difficult. Generally, architectural study, I think it's not super difficult. I know there are much difficult studies, of course, but it
Hmm.
takes long time and a lot of patience, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the great thing about the architectural studies, I must say, is that you can guide yourself throughout the studies and
Yeah,
really figure out what you want to do at the end.
yeah, exactly.
And this is something of it's a whole journey.
Yeah, because everything everything is architecture somehow, and I guess
Mhm.
your different exchanging knowledge and all this different educational background and travel experience, living experience now at the end brought you huge benefit, I guess. So I would like to ask you, what do you do? Like what do you enjoy most of your job? What actually could you please introduce what do you do in
Yeah,
current time? Yeah.
sure, sure. So I'm the CEO and co-founder of Parametricos. Generally, Parametricos is a software development startup, but we don't really like to think about it like that. Um, we are focusing on building solutions that make the architects and the engineers workflow and life a little bit easier.
Mhm.
So that's what we do. And we are a core team of four, an extended team of eight, and we've been in operation for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And we've built several solutions that we can go a little bit deeper later, but in general, the one you mentioned, and thank you for that, Studio 3TX for BIM coordination and collaboration. Then we went on building Gecko, which is sharing of 3D models between anyone, basically. Then lately we developed City Light, which is an open source smart cities solution. So that's what we do. We investigate, we research, we figure out what are the problems in the industry. What can we do with software development,
Mhm.
and we do that to offer it to our users.
Mhm. Wow. And your headquarters is in Cyprus, right? In
Yes, that's correct. But since we founded the company, we are working remotely.
Mhm.
So even though we have offices here, we have people working in the UK, in India, in
Mm.
Dubai.
Mm.
So we've been in remote works,
That's nice.
since it wasn't fashionable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. I mean, these days anyway, it doesn't make, I don't know. It maybe architecture needed, but software development, you don't really need to be in physical office, I guess. It's more or less similar environment if you work virtually in home office, I guess. What do you enjoy most about your job?
Um, I would say that waking up and coming to the office
Mm.
always has a certain uncertainty with it because we have a lot of discussions with clients and partners, and every day there's something new to the table to discuss and develop. and investigate. The industry is moving quite fast.
Mm,
I think that's the most enjoyable part, that uncertainty every day.
uncertainties, right? It's I guess it's very interesting. Eh? It's fun, I
Yeah,
guess. Yeah. Then just stable, always same repeating tasks. It's better to be uncertainty, like, and you trying to discover or trying to break the boundary of
yeah.
limitation. That's cool. I think it's quite suit for startup company. And tell me about your work. So you doing this software development, and you are CEO of this Studio
Mhm.
3DX, but particularly as a CEO, what's your like main task, like main role and responsibility there?
Yeah. So generally, being a CEO, you have to figure out all the strategies,
Mm,
from marketing to sales to developing a great product, internal strategies like the workflow that we do, the development. Why do we do the development? Is it based on research? Is it based on feedback by the users? Most of my time is devoted in building partnerships
mm,
and having a lot of discussions with our users.
yep.
I think that is that's the part that I appreciate most of this work. You build these relationships that they help you and you help them
Mm-hmm.
with your software, and there's a lot of pleasure in
Mm,
that part.
mm. I see. So a lot of discussion and coordination between your developers and engineers and the
Mhm.
partners, so you know the what to be organized, what to be solved. I
Yeah,
guess it's
yeah,
really
exactly.
difficult job as well, but yeah. And I guess it's also one of your dream, no? Is it your dream come true after your study? Like, are you catching your dream, or is it still, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's the answer.
Mm,
But you never wake up and say, okay, this is it. I've done it, and then you move on. So somehow, definitely, Parametricos, it was one of my dreams when I was younger and studying. I was like, okay, when I finish, I need to start something to help everyone
yeah.
that is in this industry to move faster and better in this
Mm,
for the whole building environment.
wow.
So, yeah.
Wow. I think because it's a main interview, difficult to share what's exactly 3DX Studio 3DX is, but I'll put the link down description box so that everyone can share. And I
Yeah.
personally using 3DX, sorry, Studio 3DX for my book writing with a couple of colleagues, and we are discovering now, and I'm very excited to writing about this platform for the future use cases, and I hope it can develop much faster, and so you become well known
Thank
software
you very much.
developer.
And
Yeah.
I really need to thank you for that input that we get.
Mm, Actually, it's really great software already, so I'm really looking forward to see further development in the future. How did you gain your knowledge and experience with BIM?
Um, okay, so I wasn't in BIM. Okay, so the whole thing started. I was doing my master's, and the thesis was on a tool that I developed in Grasshopper, which was generative design
Yeah.
and participation in
Mm,
architecture.
okay.
And that's where Parametricos started being
Mm,
into life. And then we took that idea and we tried to make it into a software when we started the company. And we saw that if we need to be part of the existing workflow, we need to start studying BIM, go
mm-hmm,
into it, and be part of this really great framework that
mm-hmm,
is BIM. So my knowledge started from my own research. Me and my colleagues, co-founders, we jumped into it, studied more, learned everything there is about it,
mm-hmm.
and well, I think that was the birth of Beam in the company and personally for me as well.
Mm-hmm. I see. And it's interesting that you move from like a parametric generative design solution,
Mhm.
like using maybe scripting or Grasshopper Visual Studio programming to like this such a common data environment, Studio 3DX. It's complete different concept somehow because the generative design is like more like connecting and automate the process, let's say, then the Studio 3DX is more like a collaboration platform to coordinate issues and communication platform to solve the issues together with all the disciplines. And how did you find this way of thinking? I mean, most of computational designer or generative designers, they are focused really on this automation or like the design strategy rather than kind of coordination platform. But you move completely different idea from what you used to like and now what you're doing.
It's not completely different. So the story goes, we started with developing the software, which was the participation. So you have still the collaboration aspect on the first platform that we developed. But the collaboration started from the client side, and then you got the architect and everyone else involved.
Yeah.
And why we transitioned, because when we went to the architect and said, okay, your client is going to come with a suggested design, which was a generated design based on his needs, the architect said, I don't care. You know, so they said, I don't like that. I like to start the design and then get the client's needs and, you know, essentially create this. So if you made was a B2C, now it's a B2B model. So that's when we switched to the architect and started to look at the architect workflow, because partly he was quite right that you have to include them from day one into this process.
Wow, that's interesting transition. What is your like? So you're gaining Beam, like let's say from pretty much from your life, and to say Beam software is always involved somehow. I know it's a process, but software is also a big part of building information modeling and management world. And I would like to ask, what is your, I mean, if you have your favorite software, what is your favorite software?
Yeah, sure. It's definitely Grasshopper.
Grasshopper.
It might sound strange, and that it's not a Beam software, you know, by heart, or even Rhino is not considered a Beam software. But with Grasshopper, I love the flexibility of, you know, designing anything that you want, and your limitations are only based on how innovative you are.
Yeah.
In combination, you know, the Grasshopper is just another framework. You know, it's a plugin for Rhino 3D, yes, but then on top of that, you have other great software. So one I use, and we are partners with them now, it's Visual Arc. And, you know, that's a layer on top of the designs that you can really utilize to create Beam designs from it.
Right. The Grasshopper is a huge platform, and its framework, as you said, it is not really meant to be Beam world, but actually you can customize any. So the API documents is really well organized for the Grasshopper and also Rhino API. And currently, McNeil developed and they almost going to issue first version of Rhino Insight for Rabbit. So I think Grasshopper will play a big role in building industry. I mean, not because of Rabbit, but the interpolability of the Grasshopper between different platforms is really amazing. And I really agree. And my opinion, my favorite software is also Grasshopper, Rhino in Grasshopper, to be honest. It's so intuitive, right? And I totally agree with you why you think Grasshopper is your favorite. My question is there Grasshopper plugin for you guys also going to be published?
Yes, there is. So we have developed in collaboration with T-Rex, which is another plugin in Grasshopper.
Yeah.
In collaboration with them, they actually started the development of IFC exporting directly from Grasshopper.
Okay. Which company again? Sorry. One more.
So the plugin is called T-Rex.
T-Rex. Okay, I never
Yes,
heard about it. Interesting.
it's
Yeah.
for static, for structural
Okay.
designing. And well, I got in contact with this guy, amazing guy that developed it. He developed actually 3 more open source plugins for
Mm-hmm.
Grasshopper.
Mm-hmm.
And then now we are in the process of creating and improving this small plugin
Mm-hmm.
that you design in Grasshopper,
Yeah.
and you simply plug in, what is this element?
Mm-hmm.
Is this an IFC wall?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you click a button at the end, you export an IFC
Okay.
directly from Grasshopper. So you don't have to bake it. Yeah, we're
Mm-hmm.
getting a bit technical here. You have to bake it in Rhino and then
Mm-hmm.
export it as an IFC.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to have that as well directly sent into Studio 3DX.
Ah, that's great. So you don't have to again like bake it. That's interesting. And
Yeah.
and this plugin is going to be commercial plugin, or is it going to be open source? This
It's
IFC
going to
export.
be, it's already on GitHub.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, we just launched it, I think, a week ago.
Oh, wow.
And it's open source.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone can take it, further develop it, or help us improve it. That's the whole
Interesting.
aim here.
Yeah, I will put definitely the link, also GitHub link in down description box, so everyone can test it. It's open source, it's a
Yeah.
great idea, and especially in like traditionally to export IFC, you need this commercial plugin, Visual Arc or
Mhm.
Geometry Gym. As far as I know, that you have to buy the license to export it, but then
Yes, that's correct.
now this open source would really help. And also, because it's open source, everyone can develop further to improve the
Mhm.
functionality, which is really
Absolutely.
great. Yeah. And on top of that, through this the plugin, open source plugin, the 3DX Studio 3DX platform is automatically synchronized, or you can use that further functionality, which is really great because the design change is really quick, especially
Yeah.
computational design or generative design, and the iterations. It's annoying to export all the iterations as
It's
IFC
exactly
format
that.
and store, upload, and then link, and assign people. It's really a lot of work also. But then if you have already this connection with Grasshopper directly, then it will at least save up a lot of time for reviewing, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the whole idea.
Yeah.
Of course, it's in really early stages, but that's why we're looking for collaborators in this part,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and definitely it's going to be a big breakthrough
Sure. Is it?
because it's another thing to export and it's
Mm-hmm.
another thing to just synchronize.
Wow, that's great. And is it going to be in Food for Rhino, or is it at
Yes.
the moment only in GitHub at the moment, right?
At the moment in GitHub, and it will be in the future in Food for Rhino.
Wow, that's great. It's good to
Yeah.
know because I'm doing a couple of workshops and everyone is asking, is there any direct connection with Grasshopper to IFC? I personally trying to develop it as well, and I
Mhm.
did some tests through this MIT license from Geometry Gym GitHub. It works well, but it's I always imagine it's a lot of work to make a data set and hard code all these IFC entities. So I just I know it works, but I just give it up. But it's great to see there's open source now. It's available. I think everyone
Yeah,
should
sure.
use it.
And
Really.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, feel free to do that. What I need to mention is that it's based on XBeam.
Mm-hmm.
So with XBeam you can really develop further and take it as a framework
Mm,
and build on top of that.
okay. That's great. And Beam collaboration, again, Beam collaboration. We're talking about
Mhm.
open Beam generally because closed Beam, I think it's been played such a long time already, and
Yeah.
current time everyone kind of supports open Beam these days because it's really necessary. You cannot just force to use one specific software anymore. So does it work at the moment, in your opinion?
Well, at the end, Beam is just a framework. So each individual has the responsibility to, sort of educate themselves and their teams and make the most out of it. I believe that as everything in life, Open Beam standards still need a lot of time to adapt to the needs of the users and
Mm,
vice versa for the software vendors
mm,
to include those. But I personally really believe in them. And that's why we are focusing on them. IFC for models, BCF for issues, and we have both of them in
mm.
Studio 3DX, and we do not support native files for now.
Yeah.
Because if it might sound a little bit strict, but if you start supporting native files,
Mm,
then you sort of promote this closed Beam workflow, which
mm,
is it's fine. It depends, of course, on the project and how big it is and how many stakeholders there are.
mm,
But definitely, in my opinion, Open Beam
mm.
is the way to go forward to
Yeah.
introduce this more complete interoperability.
Yeah. So it's definitely needs it, and it is working somehow, but need a lot
Yes,
of
yes, yes.
practice from all the participants. And I really congrats that you are developing such a platform, because let's talk about IFC Viewer. There are many IFC Viewer available, but mostly desktop solution. There's not
Mhm.
many cloud service. Okay, there are big players like Oracle or Think Project. They
Yeah,
bought this site, the software that took as a IFC viewer or Autodesk BIM 360. But to be
Mhm.
honest, is this really working well I'm not even sure Autodesk BIM 360 works really well for IFC, It works great for Autodesk product for sure, but
yeah.
for the IFC, there are a lot of things to be improved. So I'm really congrats what you guys are doing. It's really
Thank
amazing,
you.
because that's the future, and we need open platform to collaborate.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely,
So
absolutely.
exactly. And how do you so in for that regarding this industry, our industry, how do you see the future in planning?
Mhm,
Like,
mhm.
what do you see this prospect of the beam, you know, or future planning? What's the
Yeah,
future?
yeah. Well, in my opinion, it's becoming more apparent that you have to see the future of planning buildings not only from the designer's point of view or the client's point of view,
Mm-hmm.
but rather as a holistic approach.
Mm,
So you have this bigger system, if you may, that of the building environment
mm,
that is being developed, from an abstract on paper or design
mm,
that goes on site. It's a huge deal. Okay, so I believe the future of planning should include way more factors
mm-hmm.
in the design process, from energy factors, from the municipality, education, the community that you're designing in, green factors.
Right. So the all this complex has to be right. The, it's our
It's a
industry is
lot.
segmented. Yeah, it's fragmented, and more expertise needs it. Traditionally, there are only master builder who make a physical model out of wood or something on site, like years, thousand years ago, and supervising on site how to build it and what to do it. This was only done by master builder, but now it became architect and then engineers and segmented and all the specialists, green buildings
Yeah,
like engineers and everybody involved. And it's like, I guess around 50 expertise, different disciplines usually involved in big project. And for
yeah,
that,
sure.
yeah, the future is BIM. I mean, BIM is happening, but the future is nothing much different, I guess. It will be more developed and structured workflow
Mhm.
by all these people who put the efforts. And I guess in the future it will be much easier, I guess. So are there any changes in the culture of the architecture and engineering office, in your opinion?
Well, I definitely saw both sides. So there are some offices that still like to remain this traditional office that doesn't involve
Mm,
and develop.
mm,
And unfortunately, the industry is it's quite slow to
mm,
develop. So they still accept that kind of behavior, if you
mm,
like.
mm,
But on the other hand, I saw a lot of innovation
mm,
in offices that they bring They even create new departments to research, to develop. They bring teams to educate the whole staff, the whole team. So there is a lot of cultural change,
Yes.
especially in the next 5 to 10 years.
Sure. Digitalization. Why are you said it's a slow, somehow it's slow, this
Mhm.
digitalization in our industry. Why are we so slow in our construction industry? Why does it take so long to change something? Do you know any particular reason?
Um, well, I think you said it before.
Mm,
Mostly it's because it's fragmented.
mm,
So you have these 20 parts from the design and manufacturer to the contractor, and even those have like
mm,
5 stakeholders
mm,
underneath them. So that makes it really difficult. A lot of people think that why is in the construction industry
mm,
digitizing, but the answer is not a simple one. And digitizing each corner of the industry, it's quite difficult.
difficult.
But I saw a lot of improvement in the last at least 10 years,
Mm,
and definitely the latest research shows that the BIM adoption, which BIM is one part of the whole thing, right? It's
mm-hmm,
not the answer to everything.
mm-hmm.
Has definitely risen the last 10 years. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I also have feeling that this our industry, building industry,
Mhm.
or owners, they typically the trust, let's say trust or reliability, they just rely on one big players
Mhm.
and just waiting for Godot, So the big the big company, big players like Autodesk, they are very slow, right? In terms of development, I don't know even
Yeah.
what they're really developing, but they just buying and buying, adding and adding, and nothing changed. So, but as a users, or most of building owners or big planners, general planners,
Mhm.
they hugely rely on um, big suppliers, right? So the
Yeah,
whole
that's
thing,
correct.
I have feeling that it's delaying because they have to wait for the big things to change. But at the same time, there are a lot of small startups bring better idea, new ideas. But the reliability, the clients or the architects or engineers, they just don't really trust this small startup,
Mhm.
which
Yeah.
is a little bit difficult in our industry. In my opinion, of course, everything can be fast, but the mindset is more still closed mind than open
Mhm.
minded. So they, in general, wow, there's a one startup, this firm doing amazing things, but the users are not ready. Let's say this big planning team has 1,000 users. They use last 10 years only one product, let's say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when they found the better products which developed by a small startup company, they hesitate. I'm not
Mhm.
sure, to
Yeah.
this is like difficulties, I think, in general. It's moving
Definitely. Definitely.
slow.
That's something that I encounter every day.
Mm,
I have this answer in my head that I got about a month ago, and I was trying to introduce the TTX to a company, and they said, "I have 300 licenses of X. I'm not going to name the product.
mm,
I'm not changing."
mm,
I was like, I wasn't even trying to sell at that point. I was trying to have a discussion. What is their workflow? What are they
mm,
doing? Is there anything we can help? But that's a really typical um, mindset in our industry. Even though you might be doing something better, you have another alternative solution.
yeah.
They try to stick. So traditional, it doesn't mean hand drawing.
Yeah.
Traditional to some people, it's still the software that they learned
Mm-hmm.
or that they like for X and Y reason. But that's something that, on the other hand, we found a lot of people that slowly, at first, maybe yes, but they started to trust us and use the solution and help us improve it, because that's the whole point I'm looking for here,
Mm-hmm.
to give the solution. If it's a solution for them. If it's not, how can we make it into a solution
Mm-hmm.
for you? And then slowly, organically develop. That's how Studio 3DX became what it is now,
Mm-hmm.
from the feedback and this love from our users
Mm-hmm.
to reach this point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I see. All right. So this, I hope everything becomes more open-minded business model. Myself, I use A to B software for such a long time, but
Yeah.
I know it's difficult to change complete. Let's say there is a Blender open source, completely free. It should work
Mhm.
really amazing. It supports every part potential, but it's difficult to transit because of
Yeah.
maybe the I I have this comfort zone and difficult to change it. But this mindset is wrong. I think in the future, a lot of things will be open source. No, let's say
Yeah.
nobody really willing to. I don't know, next generation, they have capability of programming. I think most of young students, like school kids now running programming,
Mhm.
they
Mhm.
have their own capability to look up SDK and API documents and customize whatever they need, or maybe they develop completely new whatever they wanted to. So I guess in the
Yeah.
future, the most of software would be very easy to transit. There shouldn't be much effort to use the software, but at the same, let's say, intuitive solution, and it will be more or less open source. Maybe it's not 100% open source, but it will be very easy. Like API library, open library is issued so
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
young
Absolutely.
people can customize their tool, and I believe this will be definitely future. And um, when we get much older in the future, like say 50 or 60, almost before retirement, the age,
Mhm.
when we look at next generation, I guess these big players are no longer exist. Like if you think about
Yeah.
2000, architects, star architects only played, right? Like a big star architects. But these
Mhm.
days, okay, they are still famous, but it's not that something special that wow, here is done by this building is done.
Yeah.
It's no longer that important, right? Because
Exactly.
yeah.
There's no this signature architecture, if you may, um, and definitely, I don't know if at the end open source is
Mm,
100% the way,
mm,
but all these softwares are coming together.
yeah.
When you have when you use open source solutions. So, for example, now we are working with IFC.js,
Mm-hmm,
which they developing a great IFC viewer.
mm-hmm,
And we already use that for city lights, and we use Three.js, which is
mm-hmm,
the viewer,
mm-hmm,
and then HarpGL,
mm-hmm,
which is and HereMap, which is the 3D maps and so
mm-hmm,
on. Without that, an open source smart city concept
mm-hmm.
wouldn't be possible to set up in such a short time.
Exactly.
So if we actually develop that much,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't open source it. I think it would take us so much time to develop it from scratch
Yeah,
that it wouldn't make sense, to open source, because I would have wasted
yeah, yeah.
all this time.
Mm,
So I think that's a great opportunity, because with 3 open source packages, we set up a completely different solution.
mm-hmm,
And imagine that in 10 years time or 20 years time, like you said, where you would have all these small fragments, and you can just quickly assemble a new solution.
mm-hmm.
I
Exactly.
think I think that's the key there.
Yeah, this
It's
assemble. That's right. That's
yeah.
the good keyword you can say. And yeah, the big players, they will invest on open source in the future, like Adobe invest
Mhm.
for let's say something, or Autodesk invest
Yeah.
for something, but they are open source, so everybody can grab it and they can develop something further. And the developed commercial software from open source, if
Mhm.
the clients are happy, then they happy to pay, of course. right? It's gonna
Yeah,
be.
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. It's the same case. I go back to this example that we have for CityLight. We
Mm-hmm,
have it 100% open source,
mm-hmm,
but not everybody can host it. Not everybody has the knowledge to do that. So we are going to host it
mm-hmm,
soon on
mm-hmm,
a platform, and it's going to be a paid
mm-hmm,
solution for
mm-hmm,
that. But again, it even goes back to the pricing because of the proprietary software from big companies like you just mentioned. The pricing and the licensing scheme,
mm-hmm,
uh, it's really heavy on especially young designers. Maybe for big companies, okay, but for young designers, it's really an impact on them.
mm-hmm,
So even with the rest of our solutions, we try to keep the pricing to a level that is appropriate and usable
mm-hmm.
by any designer.
Yeah, I think this is the also happening in at least my I know in Korea, the big planning companies are disappearing. They are bankruptcy, and a lot of small office young architects, just
Hmm.
team of 2 to 5 people, like architects in a one group, and
Interesting.
there are thousands of architects from is now operating within small groups. So this is big change. In the past, 70s,
Yeah.
80s, I know that there are only 5 to 6 big offices. They're doing all the buildings, entire Korea, my
Yeah.
country. But now the story is completely changed. And I think this kind of thing is happening in global, generally everywhere in the world. No longer the big architects do some, like, of course they are still playing a lot of stuff, but
Yeah.
many,
Yeah. Absolutely.
yeah, small
I mean,
engineers.
if we take a specific example, I think it was, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was Frank Gehry's
Mm,
office that they had a proprietary software for parametric design, or maybe
mm-hmm.
Zaha did, I don't remember which one.
Digital project,
Um,
yeah, yeah. Or
yeah, so
CATIA.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So, how is that knowledge that could benefit the next generation? It wasn't. It was something closed. It was something that it was, you could see it from a really low level.
Yeah.
But I think that's why, it goes back to this assembly of open source packages and this blending of knowledge.
Mm, mm, definitely, yeah. Very interesting to see next 20 years. Well, even next 5 years, I'm very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
All right. I think that's pretty much all. I have one last question.
Sure.
Personally, I'm learning a lot these days, and since I have daughter, newborn
Mhm.
baby, I stopped kind of doing anything these days, apart from my full-time job. So,
Yeah.
but I'm learning something to do with the virtual reality or gaming and, game development and stuff like that. So I'm
Mhm,
researching
mhm.
whenever I have time. I'm spending time to learn these things. What about you? Are you interested in learning something? It doesn't have to be work related or your private like life. Architects always learn something, right? What do you enjoy to
Absolutely,
learn?
absolutely. Well, I mean, let's start with the basics. You can never really stop learning.
Mm,
So for Beam, yes, I'm always trying to stay in touch. What is the current process? The whole team now is doing this Beam certification course with Beam Design Hub, which I really recommend it.
mm-hmm,
But we are also actually doing this collaboration now with the University in Cyprus, and it's on energy calculation and consumption. And
nice.
that's something that I would like to investigate and dive deeper more in the future, because I never did really, of course, I ran the simulations
Mm-hmm,
in Grasshopper with various plugins, but really making sure that you can change the energy consumption
mm-hmm,
from the design phase, even if you change some material or you change, you know,
mm-hmm.
the orientation or whatever. That's something that I would, if I have time,
Yeah,
I would like to go more into it.
yeah, sure. Because it's based on really physical metrics, the
Mhm.
properties, so it must work. And I mean, it
Yeah,
has to be working, and just somebody has to try. That's great. All right. I think it was really great interview. Lots of
same.
inspiration for young students and people who interested in tema regarding BIM. and I wish your team all the best and really
Mhm.
congrats what you're doing. And I mean,
Thank you.
I cannot really support financially, but I always support what you do. I really respect your team doing. I know because I know how difficult it is to continue under working under pressure with uncertainty and all these
Yeah,
challenges, But all the best and
appreciate
wish,
that.
yeah, I wish also one day visit Cyprus and
Absolutely.
visiting probably your parents' restaurant or somewhere on the beach, nice Cyprus
Yeah, yeah.
beach.
There's always free food.
Yeah. Also, whenever you visit Vienna, please feel free to let me know. I'll guide through, or at least what I know about Austria, I
Yeah,
can show you
yeah.
around.
I will definitely take you up on that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, Marius. Thank you very much. Then I wish you have a
Thank
nice
you.
day, and we
You too.
talk to
You
you soon
too.
again. Yeah. Bye
Bye bye.
bye. Great.